Have you ever had that strange feeling? The one where you know your mind isn't the problem, but it feels like the problem. Not because you're wrong, but because well, you see too much. You haven't said a single offensive word. You haven't acted like you're better than anyone. You're just existing. And somehow, your very presence is enough to make people uncomfortable, to make them dismissive, cold, or distant. It's a bizarre experience, isn't it? The smarter you get, the more you understand the world, the more that same world seems to pull away from you. Not with open hostility, not with hatred, but with a kind of subtle, psychological punishment. It's the feeling of being isolated in a crowded room. It's the awkward silence that falls when you're about to share a genuine thought. It's the mockery that's cleverly disguised as a joke. It's the opportunities that vanish into thin air without any logical explanation. For years, you probably blamed yourself. You thought, maybe I'm just too intense, too complicated, too serious. But what if it wasn't your personality at all? What if it was your perception? You see through things. You see the game, the scripts, the little social lies people tell themselves to get through the day. And that ability, that clarity, makes people feel exposed. It's like they're standing naked in front of someone who refuses to buy into the collective illusion. The philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer looked at this exact phenomenon and realized it wasn't a coincidence. It was a pattern. He argued that society doesn't just ignore intelligence. On some deep, subconscious level, it actively punishes it. Not openly, not with violence, but psychologically. It does this by pushing the intelligent to the very edge of belonging. Why? Because deep down, most people don't want to be awakened. They want to be comforted. And when your existence, your very way of seeing the world, challenges their comfort, you don't get a thank you. You get exile. This punishment doesn't come with chains or prison sentences. It doesn't arrive with shouts or slaps. It comes in the quietest forms. It's the glance that looks right past you. It's the conversation that mysteriously dies the moment you enter the room. It's the job you were perfectly qualified for, but didn't get because you made the interviewer feel small, even though that was never your intention. No one ever says it out loud, but you learn the lesson fast enough. Thinking deeply comes with a social cost, and that cost is acceptance. You weren't kicked out of the group because you were rude. You were kicked out because you were rare. You asked the questions that made people squirm in their seats. You noticed the patterns they were desperately trying to ignore. You made jokes that weren't about celebrity gossip or reality TV, and so they fell completely flat. It didn't take long for the labels to appear. Too intense, too complicated, hard to talk to. But none of that was the real story. The truth? Your presence made them feel exposed. You weren't just another person in the group. You were a mirror. And nobody likes a mirror that shows them the parts of themselves they're trying to avoid. This is the cost of awareness that society never openly discusses. It's the hidden tax on perception, the quiet exile of the thoughtful mind. It's not that intelligent people are hated. It's that they are profoundly inconvenient. They disrupt the unspoken script. They don't laugh on cue when everyone else is laughing. They pause and actually think before answering a question. They poke holes in the things that were supposed to be left unquestioned. And society doesn't punish that with violence. It punishes it with invisibility. You get passed over for promotions, left out of the group chat, talked around at meetings. People will smile at you, but you're never truly welcomed. In the beginning, you try to fix it. You think something must be fundamentally wrong with you. Maybe I need to be more social, you tell yourself. Maybe I should be more light-hearted, more normal. But the more you try to shrink yourself to fit into their world, the more lifeless and empty you become. Because your intelligence isn't a personality flaw you can just sand down. It's a fundamental shift in perception, and once you see the world differently, you can't unsee it. even if seeing it costs you the world you once thought you belonged to. You've probably noticed how it works by now. It's fascinating, in a painful sort of way. You don't have to say anything controversial. You don't have to correct anyone or prove a point. You don't even have to speak. Just by being there, fully present, fully aware, your energy is enough to shift the entire dynamic of a room. People start to fidget. They suddenly feel the need to explain themselves when you haven't even asked a question. They laugh a little too loudly, or they cut you off mid-sentence, or they become intensely interested in their phones. You didn't provoke them. You mirrored them. And that reflection is precisely what made them so uncomfortable. Psychologists have a term for this: the mirror effect. It's what happens when one person's presence unintentionally reflects back everything that others are trying to suppress or avoid in themselves. Without meaning to, you became a subconscious threat. Not because you attacked their beliefs, but because your very existence questioned them. Your natural curiosity highlighted their complacency. Your depth exposed their superficiality. Your quiet restraint revealed their emotional insecurity. And let's be honest, most people are not ready for that kind of self-reflection. They don't want to see their own intellectual laziness. They don't want to confront how little they've questioned the life they're living. So, they do the next best thing. They label you instead. They call you arrogant, cold, or aloof. But what they're really saying, what they're screaming non-verbally is, "You make me see something in myself that I would much rather avoid." This is why even your silence gets misinterpreted. You're not withdrawing from them, you're observing, you're taking it all in. But they perceive that observation as judgment. Why? Because on some intuitive level, they can feel the difference. They know that you see more than you're letting on, and nothing terrifies the fragile human ego more than the feeling of being seen with perfect, unflinching clarity. The mirror you hold up doesn't flatter them. It doesn't lie for them. It doesn't play along with their games. And so, they resent you for it. Not openly, not even consciously, but in a deep-seated way that bubbles up in 1,000 little betrayals. It shows up in the friends who slowly drift away, the co-workers who subtly sabotage you, and the family members who dismiss your thoughts with a condescending smile and a shrug. You are not being punished for being wrong. You are being punished for being right. You are being punished for seeing too clearly, for being what Schopenhauer would call a heightened consciousness in a sleeping world. And the more awake you become, the more your very presence becomes a challenge to those who are still asleep. Not because you said anything, but because the mirror you carry is simply impossible to ignore. You were born into a system that was never designed for truth. It was designed for survival. And for the vast majority of human history, survival didn't depend on being the smartest person in the room. It depended on being accepted by the tribe. Go back thousands of years. Being exiled from your group wasn't a social inconvenience. It was a death sentence. No food, no shelter, no protection from predators. So, the human brain evolved a very clear priority system. Belonging comes first. Truth comes a distant second, if it comes at all. That ancient wiring is still running the show in your biology today. Even though you live in a modern city with grocery stores and dead-bolted doors, your brain still treats social rejection like a life-threatening event. That's the real reason people have a knee-jerk fear of intellectuals. It's not because they hate intelligence itself. It's because true intelligence threatens social cohesion. It disrupts the unspoken agreements that hold the group together. It introduces uncomfortable questions where there were once comfortable, shared beliefs. And to the primal, tribal part of our brain, that kind of disruption feels like danger. When you bring up a topic that's too deep, too real, or too far outside the approved script, it doesn't matter if you're right. What matters is that you're fracturing the harmony of the group. And And in the logic of the tribe, the person who causes the discomfort is the threat, even if that discomfort is just a new idea. This is why our society has a built-in rejection mechanism for anyone who thinks too differently. It has nothing to do with facts or logic. It's all about the fear center of the brain, the amygdala. When people feel intellectually outmatched or exposed, their amygdala lights up in the same way it would if they were being physically threatened. This is primal biology at play. Your intelligence didn't just confuse them, it activated their survival response. They felt exposed, so they pulled away. They felt inferior, so they subconsciously searched for reasons to dislike you. It was never about who you are. It was about what you triggered inside of them. You didn't break the tribe's rules. You revealed that the rules themselves were built on illusions. And nothing threatens a group more than someone who can see right through its foundational myths. That's why deep thinkers have, throughout history, always lived on the edges of society. Not because they're antisocial, but because their minds are fundamentally incompatible with the primitive politics of belonging. Schopenhauer understood this on a profound level. He believed that the more a person sees, the harder it becomes to participate in the game. Not out of arrogance, but because awareness is a form of alienation, and the individual mind, no matter how sharp, is still punished by the tribal brain for being too awake. Now, if you've ever felt like the whole system wasn't built for you, you were absolutely right. It wasn't. Our core institutions are not designed to nurture genuine intelligence. They are designed to control it, to channel it, and to filter it through systems of power, profit, and predictability. Let's start with school. You're told it's a place for learning, a temple of knowledge. But what does it really teach you? Memorize this, repeat that. Don't question the authority of the textbook. Don't disrupt the lesson plan. And whatever you do, don't think too far outside the box, because that box has been carefully constructed by a committee and filled with a curriculum designed decades ago by people who could never have comprehended a mind like yours. The students who ask why too often are quickly labeled rebellious. The ones who challenge the official narrative are told to just focus on what's going to be on the test. And just like that, your natural intelligence, your innate hunger to explore, to connect disparate dots, to find a deeper meaning, gets recategorized as a distraction. You're taught to quiet it down, to color inside the lines, to become employable, not enlightened. From day one, schools don't reward depth, they reward obedience. Then you graduate and enter the workplace, and the situation gets even worse. You step into your career with a spark of idealism, imagining that your innovative ideas will be welcomed, that your unique insights will finally be valued. But the moment you start to seriously question how things are done, you're no longer seen as an asset. You're seen as a threat to the company culture. Think about it. The employee who plays the political game, who nods enthusiastically in meetings, and who masterfully avoids all tough conversations, that person gets promoted. Meanwhile, you, the one who sees the glaring inefficiencies, who proposes better and smarter systems, who refuses to blindly agree with a flawed plan just because a manager proposed it. You're pulled aside and told to soften your approach. You're told to learn to read the room, to be more flexible. Not because your ideas are wrong. In fact, they're often right. But because your clarity makes the comfortable people uncomfortable. In most corporate environments, conformity is a safer bet than brilliance. And the people who rise to the top aren't the most insightful. They are, almost invariably, the most agreeable. And then, of course, there's the grand theater of politics. This is the arena where charisma is king, where speaking simply, loudly, and with absolute, unwavering certainty will win you far more followers than speaking truthfully. The politician who dares to speak with nuance, who explores uncomfortable truths, who has the integrity to admit the sheer complexity of real-world problems, that person is immediately branded as weak, indecisive, or too intellectual. Meanwhile, the one who smiles for the camera, who repeats emotionally charged slogans, and who tells people exactly what they want to hear, gets elected. Because the system of politics, like school and work, doesn't reward intelligence. It rewards the delivery of emotional comfort. You are allowed to be smart, but only as long as your intelligence serves the pre-approved script. You can be brilliant, as long as you keep your truths marketable, digestible, and safe. But the moment your thoughts threaten the status quo, the moment your depth reveals the cracks in the foundation of the system, you are immediately relabeled. You become difficult, dangerous, or not a team player. And so, your raw intelligence is relentlessly reshaped into mere productivity. Your creativity is crushed and flattened into compliance. Your insight is filtered and sanitized until it's nothing more than harmless content. Schopenhauer warned us about this. He knew that institutions are not designed for truth. They are designed for their own survival. And their survival depends on maintaining the grand illusion that everything is under control. So when your intelligence threatens that illusion, you become a liability. And society has its ways of punishing liabilities, not with violence, but with red tape, with rejection, with silence, and with the slow, soul-crushing starvation of your spirit until you either conform or disappear. Arthur Schopenhauer saw something in the human condition that most thinkers were too afraid to say out loud. Intelligence isn't a gift, it's a burden. Not because it fails to achieve success in the world, but because it sees the world too clearly to ever truly enjoy it. At the very center of Schopenhauer's philosophy is a concept he called the will. This isn't willpower or a conscious desire. It's a blind, irrational, and relentless force that drives all of life forward without logic, without morality, and certainly without any care for truth. According to Schopenhauer, the average person is completely swept away by this will to live. It's a primitive hunger for pleasure, comfort, status, and survival. It's the force that fuels our ambition, our need to reproduce, our endless desire to chase, to climb, and to consume. This will is so overwhelmingly powerful that most people never once stop to question it. They get married without deep reflection. They work jobs without a sense of purpose. They chase goals they never consciously chose for themselves, all for rewards they can't even define. But the intelligent, they are different. Not because they are more virtuous or morally superior, but because they are cursed with something else entirely, the will to truth. This is the fundamental characteristic that sets the deep thinker apart. They don't just live. They are compelled to examine their life. They question everything. They observe the world like an outsider who is somehow trapped inside of it. They ask the terrifying questions. Why do we suffer? Why do we pretend? Why do we worship illusions and destroy what is real? And with every single answer they uncover, they become more aware, more awake, and more profoundly alone. Because to wake up from the collective dream is to finally realize how many others are still sleeping and how deeply they resent anyone who tries to disturb them. This is the curse. The will to truth doesn't bring peace, it brings pain. It systematically strips away the psychological comforts that others build their lives upon. It reveals the emptiness behind cherished traditions, the cruelty behind cultural norms, the absurdity behind blind ambition. Most people seek to be soothed. The intelligent person seeks to understand. And that single difference creates an unbridgeable wall between them. The will to live says, hide from what hurts. The will to truth says, no. Look at it. Look, even if it breaks you. Schopenhauer was convinced that the more intelligent a person becomes, the more they are destined to suffer, precisely because they see through too much. They feel the existential weight of existence more heavily. They can no longer find genuine meaning in the things that once felt fulfilling. Parties feel empty and performative. Small talk becomes an unbearable chore. Worldly success feels hollow and pointless. The very things that bring other people joy bring the thinker a deep sense of discomfort, because they can't help but see the strings pulling the puppets. This is the ultimate reason society punishes the intelligent. Not because they are dangerous with weapons or wealth, but because they threaten the grand illusion that keeps everyone else sane. Their very presence is a quiet whisper in the background, saying, "There's more to this. There's something wrong here. There's something fake." And those whispers are unbearable to a world that is fundamentally addicted to comfort. So the will to truth isolates you. It pushes you to the absolute edge of society. It strips away your ability to play pretend. And in that lonely exile, you are left with only one choice. Do you numb yourself and try to fall back asleep into the dream? Or do you keep walking forward, knowing that the pursuit of truth will cost you everything the world defines as happiness? Schopenhauer's answer was clear. Let them sleep. Let them worship their illusions. But you must see, because the only life worth living is one that is not built on lies. Maybe you have spent years, even decades, wondering what is fundamentally wrong with you, why you struggle so much to connect, why every conversation feels forced, why you feel like a complete outsider even when you are desperately trying to belong. You've been told your whole life that you are too serious, too intense, too sensitive. You are just too much. But here is the truth you need to hear. You are not broken. You are simply seeing things ahead of their time. You are not difficult. You are advanced. Your intelligence didn't isolate you. It revealed you. It stripped away the comfortable illusions that other people still cling to for warmth. And once you saw what was really beneath the surface, you could never go back to pretending it wasn't there. That's why you struggle in shallow spaces. That's why meaningless small talk drains your very soul. That's why you would rather be completely alone than surrounded by noise. It's because your mind was built to explore the depths, and you are living in a world that is addicted to the distractions of the surface. You feel disconnected, not because you lack something, but because you see too much. And in a society that values comfort above all else, clarity becomes a curse. But this curse is not yours alone. History is overflowing with minds that were too far ahead of their time to be embraced. Socrates was executed by the state for asking too many questions. He dared to challenge Athens to think, and for that, they punished him with death. Nikola Tesla, the man who dreamed of a future the world couldn't yet comprehend, died poor, isolated, and unrecognized, while lesser men built empires on his stolen ideas. Alan Turing, the genius who cracked the Enigma code and helped end World War II, was chemically castrated and destroyed by the very society he saved, all because he didn't fit into their narrow definition of what is acceptable. They weren't celebrated in their time. They were silenced, not because they were wrong, but because they were right far too soon. And maybe, just maybe, so are you. The loneliness you feel is not a sign of your failure. It is the unmistakable sign of your perception. You weren't born into the wrong world. You were born into a sleeping one, with your eyes wide open. You were never too much. You were just advanced. And being ahead of your time doesn't make you broken. It makes you necessary. Because every single age needs minds that don't just reflect the times, but challenge them, disturb them, and ultimately awaken them. And while society may not celebrate you now, that doesn't mean you aren't shaping it. It just means you're building something that won't be fully understood until the rest of the world finally catches up.